this lab, we're going to use ChatGPT to perform a Benford's Law analysis. Now, in diagnostic analytics, we're often trying to compare a theoretical distribution with an actual distribution and see if they depart from each other, and then try to explain why. Benford's Law essentially provides a distribution or a recommended or theoretical distribution of the first digit. And so we're going to use a data set to evaluate that. Specifically, we're going to answer the question, is the first digit of the 2010 census by country different than Benford's Law would suggest? So is actual different than theoretical? So to get started, let's go ahead and upload the data from the data set, and we can see it there, and we could go take a look. Now, it sometimes makes sense to go ahead and look at it in Excel, and so let's look at it, and this is just populations of countries of the world as of 2010. Looks like there's roughly 199 countries represented here, and so that's the data set we're going to be looking at. I often like to ask it to provide a data dictionary, and that is trying to make sure that what I think is being provided is actually being provided. And so I can provide a data dictionary, but a lot of times by just providing a header, it's able to provide that for me. And so in this case, it just looks like we have a country name and a population, and we can see the data types there. So next we're just going to ask it to, well, we usually want to check and make sure that the full data set was read in. And so let's go ahead and read that in. And so we can see the last 5 or bottom 5, and it looks like those are the ones we saw. And so it looks like the data set is in fact there. So now we're going to start applying some analytics techniques. Now in some cases, when I teach this in Excel, I kind of teach you step by step on what to do. But here, if you say Benford's Law or Benford's analysis, it already knows what to do. And so sometimes it makes sense to just let it do its thing. The other time, it might be good to check it. And so here we're asking it to perform Benford's analysis. There's a theoretical distribution of how many times 1 should it be the first digit, or a 2, or a 3, or a 4, all the way to 9. And so there's that theoretical distribution. And now we're trying to see if actual is different than theoretical, or what Benford's Law would say it would be. And so we can kind of see this here. For example, we expected the number of 1s to appear 60 times out of the 199. And actually this was the actual, this is what we saw, and the expected is what theoretically would be provided. But look, 34, 34, 24, 24, very close to each other for each of these digits. We also could ask it to perform a visualization, and you can kind of see the actual, which is observed, versus the expected, and kind of see how close they are. Now there are some minor departures there, but in general it looks pretty good. The next thing we can do is actually run a statistical test, and this is a chi-square statistical test. It essentially says, hey, for all of these, are they different than the distribution? And so it's not just looking at 1 compared to 1, it's 1 compared to 1, 2 compared to 2, 3 compared to 3, and trying to see if they are statistically different distributions. And so we ask it to run a statistical test. If we were running this in Excel, I would recommend the chi-square test, but it kind of knows what we're trying to do, compare actual to theoretical. And so we're going to perform that chi-square test. And again, the p-value generally would have to be less than 0.05 to have a significantly different distribution. So we fail to reject the null hypothesis. In other words, they do not significantly differ. The actual does not, or the observed does not significantly differ from the expected. And so you can kind of see what that looks like. So now, as we attempt to tell the story, we could go back and look at this graph up here and use that as a visualization to tell the story. Or we could ask it to provide a histogram, so side by side, the actual or observed counts as compared to the theoretical count. And we can see how that's provided. Okay, and so we can see that and how close they are. You know, we can change the color scheme or whatever, but that could be provided. And the next thing we could do it would be to output that histogram so we could use it in a report or an executive summary if we like, and it will provide that and print that out. And then finally we're going to ask it, once it prints that out, we're going to ask it to provide the prompts that we gave. The first time I ran this, I was really surprised that it was able to run Benford's Law on its own without any more instruction, but that's what we're learning about ChatGPT and generative AI. Once we could download the file and that would show up here, but now we could also ask it to just display the prompts, and certainly I could have it output it to a Word file instead, or I could just copy and paste it from here. So that completes this lab.